Imagine being 11 years old and owning 160 acres of land that everyone around you says is worthless. Dry land, weeds, lizards, no crops, no possibility. And then you find out that beneath this worthless land is one of the richest oil deposits in the country. This is the true story of Sarah Rector, the young girl who would not sell her land no matter how hard the powerful men around her tried to intimidate and terrorize her into doing so. A worthless piece of land. However, with the official establishment of Oklahoma as a state in 1907, drastic changes were made for the people who were considered Native Americans and freedmen. The Muskogee Creek Nation, along with the Creek freedmen who were slaves adopted into the tribe after the Civil War, were given land allocations. This was a federal policy aimed at creating a situation where the land owned collectively by the Indians was divided into individual ownership. This marked a drastic change in the social and economic structure of the Indian Territory. Among the land allocations was one given to a young girl named Sarah Rector. She was a Creek freedman descendant who was given 160 acres of land in a remote area near the Cimarron River. At the time, the land allocation was considered a cruel joke rather than a blessing. For one thing, the land was dry and unforgiving. There was no water available for livestock. The land was considered a barren wasteland with no signs of human habitation or any possibility of improvement. It was considered a hopeless place for families who were trying to survive in a newly created state. Worse yet, it came with a tax bill to boot. No matter how small the bill, it was a heavy burden for a struggling family to bear. The Rector family, like the freedmen, worked hard to make ends meet. Paying a tax bill on land that did nothing but collect weeds and dust was a foolish idea, to say the least. Joe Rector, Sarah's father, thought about selling the land, but to him, it was a waste of time and money to try to farm it. It would be easier to sell it off and forget about it. Yet to Sarah, the land represented hope, possibility, and promise. It didn't matter if it was hope, instinct, or plain old stubbornness, but Sarah knew that her land was good for something, even if nobody else did. She knew that beneath the dry earth and failed crops, something great was waiting to be discovered, something nobody else knew about yet. By 1913, Oklahoma was in the midst of a roaring oil boom. Across the plains, drilling rigs began to pierce the skyline, and quiet towns were transformed into thriving metropolises of speculation and hope. Fortunes were made overnight as wildcatters struck oil and turned farmland into fields of black gold. Families who had once struggled to survive suddenly found themselves rich beyond all imagination. During all this, Sarah was convinced that her seemingly worthless land had untold potential. While others saw nothing but dry grass and dust, she saw something powerful lurking just below the surface.
You can hear it. Where's the place of it? There's oceans down there.
It's the wind howling and the earth creaking and grinding. Ain't nothing to it.
Sarah was sure that God had given her a special gift, a way of knowing that others didn't.
God gave me ears to hear it, Mom.
Grown-ups around her were skeptical of the idea. Experienced oilmen had overlooked her land before. She was convinced God had granted her the capacity to see what others saw was impossible. Adults around her didn't believe in the concept.
Mister, there's a treasure trove of oil in there, and I'm looking for a partner to help me pluck it out.
Well, good luck with that, honeybee. But you best be flying on home now.
Experienced men in the oil industry had already passed over her land. People around her shook their heads at what they saw was just childish imagination. However, Sarah's confidence never wavered. While other people around her believed in what they saw, Sarah believed in what she felt and what she believed. Despite the pressure to give up on her land, but Sarah never wavered in her belief in her land and in what she believed in. In order to prove her theory, Sarah and her father decided to visit the oil companies directly. Muskogee was a thriving center of commerce and business in the state of Oklahoma, teeming with speculators hoping to strike it rich. Instead of opportunity, they were met with racism and disdain. The executives barely looked them in the eye. Some of them assumed that Joe Rector was a hired hand, not a landowner. Still, Sarah and her father refused to give up. At last, after making several attempts, one of the oil companies agreed to drill, but under a short-term lease.
Okay, little lady, here it is. Final offer, $1 an acre, 6-month lease, and I'll give you 8 points if there's a gusher.
I want to read it first.
A wooden derrick quickly emerged from the arid ground. Heavy equipment was brought in, and drilling began. Each day, Sarah observed as the site continued to drill deeper into the ground that she thought held such promise. Weeks turned into months. Then, the devastating news was revealed. Dry hole, no oil. The company left the site, leaving equipment behind, as the cost of removal was greater than the equipment's value. To almost everyone, the experiment was over. The dream, apparently, had ended. But as soon as the company announced the well was a failure, buyers began to arrive with unexpected offers. At first, it was $2 per acre, then it was $3, then $6. But the numbers continued to grow, as did the sense of urgency in their voices. Men who had shown no prior interest in the property were suddenly eager, almost desperate, to make a purchase. It was unsettling. If the property was truly worthless, why were strangers traveling across Oklahoma to make cash offers on it? Why the pressure to sign quickly? Why the emphasis on the Rector family needing to decide before the market changed? It was suspicious. Something was not right. But then the situation became outright frightening. One night, armed men raided the Rector family's cabin, ransacking their home in search of the deed. Drawers were overturned, belongings were strewn about, and in the process, their dog was shot. But the violence was calculated. The message was unmistakable. It said that someone believed there was real wealth hidden beneath that dry, cracked soil, and they were willing to intimidate, threaten, and hurt people to get hold of it. It was about this time that Sarah entered a business partnership with an independent oil driller by the name of Bert Smith, a wildcatter, a risk-taker who was not afraid of failure. Their agreement was for a 50-50 split, and all of this was arranged by a simple handshake.
Need to work out our terms. I was thinking 50-50.
Continuing the drilling, using the abandoned equipment, they drilled deeper than the other company had dared. However, disaster soon struck. For the drilling pipe got stuck deep underground, and the well was about to be useless without expensive equipment. Soil samples were sent off for a geologist's report. The first report indicated that the oil was contaminated by saltwater and was not worth extracting. But the question was, why? It was later learned that other interested parties in the oil business were tampering with the reports, attempting to dissuade the competition. A second, honest report was made, and the truth came out.
I can give you the technicals like the college boys, the chemical breakdowns and all if that's what you want.
No, just give us the meat. What do we got?
It's your field, Sarah. What's your preference?
Meat's good, please.
The oil was not only present, but it was high-grade, very valuable oil. Word spread around quickly. Suddenly, Sarah's land was believed to be on top of one of the richest oil pools in the region. Legal pressure was brought to bear on Sarah's land.
What is that? $3,200 cash.
You sent a man to steal my deed and kill my dog. I ain't selling.
At the time, Oklahoma law often required wealthy black miners to be given white guardians to oversee their finances. Many white guardians took advantage of the situation and sold the land at a low price or took the profits. Powerful individuals sought to acquire Sarah's land through the legal system. The case was taken to the courts. The media covered the case extensively. In a crowded courtroom, Sarah was asked if she was aware of the proceedings on her land. She stood tall and said,
"The state gave me that property on account of my ancestors. But when people found out there was oil on it, they started thinking it's theirs. When the land had only weeds and lizards, it was all mine. All I'm asking is to keep what's mine, what was given fair and square."
Despite the white guardian who was assigned under the law at the time, the media coverage ensured she was not deprived of her land. In 1913, oil was struck in substantial quantities. At the tender age of just 11 years old, Sarah Rector was to become one of the wealthiest black children in America. It was said that she earned hundreds of dollars a day, which was a huge amount at that particular time. Oklahoma's oil business continued to grow, and Sarah's wealth continued to accumulate, especially due to the efforts of individuals such as John D. Rockefeller and the rest of the Standard Oil family. The wealth that Sarah earned is said to be equal to millions today. Despite all the racism, legal trickery, and intimidation, Sarah continued to own and enjoy the fruits of her land. A life beyond the oil fields. Later, Sarah settled in Kansas City, where she invested her wealth in the best of real estate. From being the young girl who struggled to hold on to her land, Sarah became a respected woman who was known for her presence at the most important events within the city. Her home was the meeting place for the most renowned entertainers, business people, and socialites. Sarah had found her opportunities and was confident about the future, unlike the threats and dismissals she had received when she was young and living in Oklahoma. But Sarah's life was not just about the wealth she had acquired. Her life was about the struggles she had faced, the racism, the intimidations, the doubts, the faith, and the courage to hold on to what was rightfully hers. This 11-year-old girl stood up against corporations, loopholes, and intimidation, and she won. Therefore, The next time someone tells you that you're too young, too small, or too powerless, remember Sarah Rector. Remember the land everyone laughed at. Remember the oil beneath it. And remember, sometimes the greatest wealth belongs to those who refused to give up. If this story has inspired the viewer, then please share your thoughts in the comment section below. What another hidden historical figure should we explore next? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more powerful stories that history almost forgot.